Good morning. Let's get this party started. I am nothing if not consistent. Every day, we're going to ask the same question. I think the secret of this great question is asking it every day. Who am I? Who am I? Why am I here? How did I get here? What's going on? What's the meaning of our lives? What's the object of the exercise? What is the story? What is our story? Where did we come from? What is our tale? It's all very important. What is the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves? What's the meaning of it all? Well, so we're going to talk about this in reference to source energy, and we're going to try to find those places where mankind is missing something. And then if we pick it up, then just add it to everything else we're already doing and that we already are, and we'll just flow gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. You know, that's one. We had a moment with that one. I was thinking about that song for a second, and then I went, oh my God, look what it is telling you. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. What it's saying is let go of the oars. Flow downstream. Life is supposed to be joyful. Wow. When I told that to one of my daughters in a particular frame of mind, and she burst into tears. I mean, when she realized how epically profound that little ditty was. And then you catch this glimpse of this epically profound ditty being chanted unconsciously by all the children. And you go, wow, look at how the truth echoes everywhere. You can see the truth. This truth that I'm trying to point to, if I'm the first one that's ever said it to you, then go check your math. Because the actual truth is going to be iterated in a jillion different ways from a jillion different authentic mirror reflective devices, which is what we all are. And so when you start getting a bead on the truth, it's not standing somewhere alone, carried by only one person. If you've got something like that going on with somebody out there, I would check it, because the real truth is everywhere. So now, having said that, I'm going to tell you something that maybe you've never heard before. No, not exactly that. But, you know, it's true. I may be telling you at some point things that you've never heard before, but once you tune into it, then prick your ears up and see if it doesn't echo in your logic, in your understanding, within your own being. Check that. See whether it feels right within you. Whether it's resonating, you know. And I hope to, it is my intention that my message is one of pure positivity. There's plenty of negative out there, and I could go in and we could talk some reality, you know. Oh, look at this terrible thing that's happening over here. Well, that's assuming a certain frame that you're interpreting it as a terrible thing. It might be a see, I have a thesis, and this is why I do the show. I have a theory that everything boils down to us not knowing who we are. And so every problem of humanity, I believe, echoes back to us not knowing who we are. Because when we know who we are, there's no problem. We mesh harmoniously with one another and with the field around us. When we are at war with each other for some reason, whether it's civil war within a country, based on sides that, cannot see what the heck the other person is talking about, or whether it's, hot war, like what's going on in the Middle East and what's going on in Ukraine and Russian border. That's that kind of stuff. That's the problems of humanity. What the heck are we doing? Who are we? There are other problems that we got going on. Now, I am going to agree with all the positive polys out there saying that the way to fix our problems is to focus on the good stuff, don't focus on the bad stuff. You're right, and I'm not going to focus on the bad stuff. You're seeing me very quickly tip my hat to the notion that we do have issues in the house to clean up. And I'm going to very quickly, mention these enormous things. Sixth mass extinction, Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I used to call it Garbage Island. It's not solid like an island, but it's a huge swirling mass of, and actually it's outlining a vortex in the motion of the oceans, in the motion of the ocean. Yeah. You can see this vortex, this swirling vortex, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch that's sort of pooled together. It's pulled together. That which is like unto itself is drawn. And so the garbage all pulled itself together, and it's swirling in a vortex of garbage in the center of the, over in the Pacific Ocean, somewhere between California and Hawaii. That's where I heard where it is. I have no intention of going to look at it. However, I understand it's there. And all those other problems too. And they are problems. Global poverty. Any person that you drive past the intersection at the at the mouth of Corrales down here, and you see people on all four streets, or on a couple of them anyway, begging for money, I think that's a problem. I don't think that is a society that is properly in motion, engaged. It's not right. There's something not right about that. And I don't know, I'm not going to actually blame anybody about that situation. I'm just going to say, you know what, that's not right. That doesn't mean that I'm going to jump to, well, let's pass this law or that law. It's terrible, so let's just make it illegal for them to do that. It's sort of like when I notice that there's way too many babies being aborted for reasons that are not. And even so, when you're aborting them for medical and or rape or incest issues, there's probably too many of that too, but you still want to do those. But when you notice how many abortions are happening, you go, there's something wrong. But you don't say, okay, F the mother, F the woman who is reaching for that abortion because she can't afford the child, maybe. And there's no good system of forcing the father to stay involved, and maybe he's a creep, and him staying involved is not the answer. So the answer isn't to make it illegal. It's to have your heart open with compassion for both sides of the issue, and then plug that heart into your brain and try to figure out what the problem actually is and what the answer potentially would be, And actually, every single time, no matter what the problem is, I plug it in with my heart and my brain. I plug my heart and brain in together, and I run the equations, and the answer is always know thyself, know ourselves, know who we are. We are all in this together. We are a collective being, and I don't know anybody out there who can make it without the rest of the group. I don't personally know. Now, I have known people who have had a good gig going on the side, supplementing what they get through money, but they get it through other ways. But still, nowadays, everybody I know has smartphones, has computers, has vehicles, has, electrified homes and, you know, internet service, webs, the interwebs. Everybody I know is in the stream of humanity. We are a superorganism, like it or not. And when you watch our behavior, we are a superorganism. You are humanity with a capital H, mankind with a capital M. And I still I have not looked up. I have to go into it deeper. I have to go look at their works and look at how the other gurus that I have had, what they have called this being that we are. But we really are it, and the only way that we are going to properly interact with one another upon this planet is to let go of our resistance to each other. Within our own body, as our blood is flowing, we don't have some cells just offering resistance, going, no, wait a minute, let me think about this. Maybe you're not the best thing for... No, everything trusts everything. As a matter of fact, the way what your cells are doing, I got this from Deepak Chopra. He's a regular MD doctor, amongst all of the other things that he is. Philosopher, writer. He was one of my first gurus, one of my first that you can count on one hand. When you could still count him on one hand, he was over there. For sure. But he talks about the way your cells act in trust with each other. What they use up all of their energy stores. All of it. They just use it up. They hand it off to each other, knowing, trusting that the cell to the left is going to hand you another, and that you hand it off to the right without storing, without we have that bit for a rainy day, that bit that you put off to the side. Now, we are not cells, but we kind of are cells. And so the limit of our storing for our individual, as we actually, that's not the conclusion to make. Not the direct conclusion, but it has to do with trust. Trusting, your cells trust each other. Your cells know that it's flowing and that nobody's resisting anything about who we are. Well, I think we need to know who we are. I think that it goes to every problem that we try to solve, from crime. This is always the moment in the vibrational time frame where the playbook goes like this. There's all this crime going on out here. If you want to protect yourself from crime, you need to elect the person who is tough on crime. That tough on crime person is usually the right-wing candidate, because the right wing is the one who solves their problems by getting tough on them. Let's get tough on crime. Let's get tough on those people out there who are giving you a hard time. Well, ultimately, the problem with all of that is that our ultimate goal is freedom. And even the people who claim that so they claim two things that are sort of oxymoronic. They're going to get tough on crime, but they're the ones who are going to protect your freedoms. Now, maybe we take everybody at their word. But we don't test it. What we do is we know who we are, we align ourselves with our great inner being, and then we ourselves become positive, non-resistant. I'm not a resistant person. Even though, I'm going to tell you all these things that I'm kind of part of me is upset about, but then another part of me completely understands it's like I'm looking at the whole thing and I'm not pushing back against any of it specifically because you know what, things are always working out for me. And so as the me through us or the us through me goes, things are always working out for us. And so when I see that we have been blocked from getting off fossil fuels for 100 years, part of me recognizes that actually there's a reason why that's true, because we can't trust ourselves because we don't know ourselves. And that's why we need to know ourselves. And we need to start knowing ourselves pretty damn soon because the planet needs us to get off of fossil fuel. It needs us to get off of fossil fuel. It needs us to be able to be trusted with over Unity devices. You know what? I'm ready to tackle the realities of what's going to happen when cults spring up here and there, and tribes and kingdoms, and we have to start dealing with that again. Tribes and kingdoms and cults and groups and there's going to be all kinds of stuff. Some of them are going to be religious cults. Some of them are going to be fear-based protection cults, like militia sort of compounds off in the woods somewhere. There's going to be these things. They're going to be easier to have. Little pods of separation is all they are. Little pods of separation. And they're sort of representing and reflecting different energies within our human dynamics, too. It's all very, very interesting. So that's what we're going to have to deal with when all of a sudden we open up the floodgates and say, hey, guess what? Over Unity is possible. But let's embrace it. Let's embrace it, people. Have you watched that new show? It's not, well, it was 2024 sometime, so I don't know how new. I think it was 2024, not 23. And it was narrated by that Peter, I want to say Dingle, but I don't think that's his name. Maybe it is, but it's a funny name if that's what his name is. I'm not sure that's what his name is. If it isn't, I apologize. But it's that handsome dwarf guy from Game of Thrones, whatever that guy's last name is. I think his first name is Peter. And he narrates. He's got a beautiful voice, too, very deep for a little guy. Dwarves don't have high voices. So anyway, the show is it's a series. There's two of them. One is called "Do You Want to Be a Cult Leader?" and I think that's what it is, or "So You Want to Be," or "How to Be," something like that. Cult leader and tyrant. Those are the two. And one studies religious cults. Through the history, and there's been all kinds of interesting ones from the wild one back in the 70s, the Jim Jones one when 900 people did a combination of murder-suicide. A bunch of them drank that Kool-Aid intentionally, and a whole lot of them were forced to drink it and then oh wow, that's a crazy one. There were other ones too. There was a really interesting one that I remember reading about in the 80s. There was a book in the library called I think it was called um, I can't remember what. I could think about what the actual name of the book was, but the name of the cult was, or maybe it was the subtitle of the book, and I'm just trying to remember the title: Ervil LeBaron and the Lambs of God. And they were a fundamentalist offshoot of the Mormon Church that took off to northern Mexico, and it ended in a bloodbath, let me tell you. And then there's the Waco thing, ended in a bloodbath. There's all kinds of weird things that's going to happen when people are more able to go off on their own and do their own thing without being connected to the group. Now, I think most of us will stay mostly connected to the group through the internet and the supply chain and, UPS and all that kind of stuff. But still, there's going to be some, and we're going to need to understand the psychology of it if we're going to protect ourselves from it. And we need to understand the psychologies of some other things on this planet right now, which if I was anything in other than a non-resistant state, I would be really careful about saying, but I'm not in a place, in a state of mind where I am talking about, I know that there's all kinds of practical, and I understand that there's issues with these people. But say we have to acknowledge where we are positive with people. We have to understand who we are. I was going to say something about understanding about Kim Jong-un, and I recognized that, some people coming from actual material reality, looking at, translating the words that I was about to say, might go, ooh, and misunderstand where I am coming from. But truly, there is an extreme ultimate point where there is no us and them. We are one organism on this planet. We are one morphogenetic field, which is a vibrational thing. It's not something that borders or declarations change. Just because you say, let's everybody stand up and say that we are not connected through this morphogenetic field. Let's everybody just say those words every morning as your mantra. Well, that's silly because you can say that all day long and it's not going to change the reality of the vibrational reality of this data field that we share as human beings, and that we flow with, and that we are one with, and that in a mystical way, and yet in a literal, scientific, abstract, mathematical way, we are sharing data flow and information, and we are expanding with, and we are one with this great vibrational morphogenetic field called humanity. And so what do I say about the cults? What is that? Well, each and every one of us is a whole being that is either being their whole self, or, and this is where most people land, or at any given time are being part of themselves, and they are being whatever they are, conditionally based. They are focused on the conditional world in a particular way. They're focused in a particular way, and then they are offering their vibration based on part of themselves and this conditional focus. That's what most people are doing. And in doing so, they find themselves in varying states of negative emotion because you're not understanding what your negative emotion really is. So you have a specific perspective, which is where you are on the grid looking at the world. You have your specific perspective. And then you also have this broader perspective that includes all things. And then layers of things in between. So you are your individual specific self coming from, radiating forth, viewing from, and then your vibrational offering coming from this pinpoint specific physical person that you are. And you are sussing out the field around you and its meaning, how it's flowing, what is it doing, and how do I make myself safe? How do I find my happiness? How do I help the beings around me that I also care about, the little furry ones and the tiny little pitter-patter feet ones, pitter-pattering down my own hallway, be they 2-footed or 4-footed or winged or, whoever you love in the world around you, that you want to care for and help thrive too, because you can see their needs and you are so much more focused outward. It's so much easier to focus outward than to focus from within your own needs and your own desires. But you know what? The actual answer is you got to do both. You got to do both. You have to be one of the wins in the win-win-win-win paradigm. You have to be one of those wins in order for you to fully engage and fully participate and really get into this game that we're playing. Because it is kind of a game that we are playing. It is kind of a game that we are playing. Although it's a really, really serious game. And on the other hand, it isn't serious at all. But it's both of them. It's both really serious on the one hand, and I'm shaking my finger at my microphone. Both really, really serious on the one hand, and not serious at all on the other hand. It is both of these things. Life is a paradox. The reality of it, with a capital R, is a paradox. And the blessed point is when you can stand in the center of the duality, of the paradoxical points, of the things that contradict each other all over the place. You can stand in the center of it and see both sides. That is the Holy Trinity, by the way. 1, 2, 3. The two paradoxical points and the point whereupon you get a perfect perspective of both sides, and you see how they relate to each other, you see how they flow with each other, you see how they co-create, how they dance with one another. That's the Holy Trinity, the blessed point. And actually, Bashar mentions that. It's his number, it's his 3 in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 11 download. What is the 1, 3, 5, 7, 11 download? The 1 is the one that we all share. The one is all. The all are one and the one is all. That's the first rule of creation. The unmutable, unchangeable rules of creation. So the first one, that's the 1. And then the 3, that's what I just said, that the paradoxical perspective position when you can see the duality, but you're standing at the point right in between, and it opens up into this triad of understanding. That's the 3. And then the 5 is the 5 immutable rules. The first one is the one is all and the all is one. Oh, the first one is you exist. There is nothing you can do to change that. You exist. You're sitting at a point of consciousness that is a permanent seat. permanent front row seat to the parade of life for all eternity. However it shakes out, whether you're in your physical form or whether you have reemerged into non-physical and are now more connected to the rest of the field than you are. You can imagine yourself to be disconnected from the field when you are in your physical body, but when you reemerge back into non-physical, you realize, oh yeah, I'm part of the whole thing. But still, you possess this point of consciousness that is the front row seat to the parade of life for all eternity. The parade of existence through all eternity. It's even bigger than life. The number 2, let's see, I'm on the 5. So 1 is you exist. Number 2 is everything is here and now. Everything is here and now. And when you are at a different now, like tomorrow, but it'll be now, and you're looking at the same thing from a different perspective. It's all now, and it's all just looking at the same now from different perspectives down the way from. It's like different points in the metamorphosis, creating different apparent nows, but everything is happening all at once, and you're tuned into, and yet it's creating. It's active and fresh and new in every moment too. I don't know. It is very mysterious. Let me not get sidetracked. I'm on the 5. 1, 2, everything is here and now. The third one is, what is the third one? The fourth one is what you put out is what you get back. And then the fifth one is there's nothing, that everything changes except for the laws. So what's the third one? Everything is here and now. The all are one and the one is all. I think that's the third law. Everything is here and now. Yeah, I think I covered that. That's the 5. Now, the 7 is the 7 things that you physically need to get by in this world. Physically, in order to continue living, for your physical being to continue to go on. In spite of all the things that you think you just must have that pink purse or I'll just die. In spite of the fact that there's that kind of stuff. That's not really true. The 7 things you need are in the order of the probability of you going still when you don't get this, and your physical body going still, if you know what I mean. Nudge, nudge. The first one is air. You'll go still in just a few minutes if you don't get that. The second one is water. The third one is oddly not food, it's sleep. Because apparently you will go psychotic. And unless you're put in you could be put in a straitjacket and forced to stay awake. And as a matter of fact, I am sure that there have been people who have done, I know they've done experiments on animals to this, put them in positions where they could not go to sleep and watched them go insane. And they do it over and over and over and over and over again. And as a matter of fact, they do that to animals. Now, they did back in the 80s. I hope they have outlawed that crap now, because it's madness and it is absolutely demonic that we would continue to do that to. Now, in Dr. Mengele's laboratories in Auschwitz, he probably did the same kinds of experiments to human beings, made sure that they did not go to sleep and watched them go insane. Because he could. Because that's what the vivisectioner mind wants to do. In any case, that was one of my things. I discovered this in the 80s and I was shocked. I was horrified, and I delved into it deeply because I was a single human being and didn't see any other alternative other than me learning about this. So I didn't join any other people other than, I gave to, I subscribed to some magazines, and I may have given some donations, but it's not like I joined people. There were people at the time who were becoming quite radical. There were organizations that were trying to physically free lab animals. The Animal Liberation Front, I think, there was people like that, and they were going to jail, and there were corporations were having big ass laws changed so that you could not do that, no matter how much your conscience or your heart demanded that you do such a thing. You were not legally allowed to do such a thing, and the penalties became quite harsh. And for myself, for my own part, I came up against a place where I just couldn't look at it anymore. It was so disturbing. It was just like when I studied the Holocaust. You go deep enough into that and you're like, I just can't look at this anymore, and still conscience being a human being anymore. There must be some bigger reason for this. There must be some bigger answer. And so I backed away from that, and I'm trying to remember exactly the road that I took so that I can take it again and help you go on it too and find the bigger way. I can't find the words right at this moment, so let's just circle back around. The nice thing about having this topic every morning, it's the same topic. You can keep circling back around. The reason you can do that is because everything is spin, and all of it is spinning, and we're moving into a tight spin on this one. And the center of the spin of this great organization of understanding is, who am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? Well, what do all the religions add up to? How about that one? What do they all add up to? What is the meaning of who is the big G man? With a capital G. Who is he? And what I think about that is that there's two things there. There is one that is absolutely not personal at all, and that is the flow and form of this spinning space-time, this spinning grid, the spin of organization, the spin of thoughts, the spin of intention, the spin of planets, the spin of black holes, the tight spin of the vortices above your head and the vortex below your head, and how does he say it? I have this written somewhere. The vortices above your head, reaching the ionosphere, and the vortex below your head, reaching the center of the earth, connecting you with all that is. And then there's more to that too. It's a beautiful meditation, actually. I used to do it every morning. If you're a fan of the show and you've heard my talking about how this evolved, how I got to being able to do this, how it started with me under the blankets in the early morning hours of my own little bed. Under the covers, thinking big thoughts about big things, wondering how to get these big thoughts that were running freely without resistance through my own brain, and they seemed so brilliant to me, and I thought, if only I could get this down on paper, people would go, wow, because I've read a lot of wise stuff that's not as wise as this stuff that I'm feeling coursing through my own brain. How do I get it down on paper, because when I get up and I start re-inhabiting my physical body and I sit myself in front of a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, all of this wisdom just, flies right out the window. I can't even find the relevant way to track it, how to anchor it down so that anybody even knows what I'm talking about. And then I'm thinking, this is why poetry. This is why you can't just get up on a soapbox and start, talking about stuff. So then I thought about, bringing paper and pencil under the bed and stuff And that wasn't going to work because, I can't see. And so I would just scrawl whatever I could write in there, clues. And then I thought, well, maybe later I will sit in front of a screen and I will look at this code sentence that I've written to myself to remember, and I would look at it and I'd go, well, that doesn't look nearly as wise as I thought it did. So then I decided that the answer was to try to get this voice, this inner voice, get it out, to try to figure out how to get her to speak. And so I'd come downstairs in the middle of the night, and, well, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and sit in the dark, get all comfortable in the dark. I'd keep it dark, blankets over, and I'd just start speaking aloud. And it was kind of jerky at first, as I would talk about who am I, as I would get straight about who I thought I was, who I thought my parents were, who I thought I told myself my own story, And I started talking aloud about what I thought the universe was, how I thought it was shaped. I went to a conference about 1.5 years ago, 10 months ago, maybe now, 8 months ago, and made a declaration to a friend of mine that what I wanted to do was I wanted to learn to channel. But I didn't want to learn to channel some other entity. I wanted to learn to channel my own inner being, my own connection to my non-resistant wholeness, my whole self. And so this brings me back to what I think we're doing here on the earth, is I think all of us are being partially ourselves and not wholly ourselves. Our negative self is not us, but it's not our whole self, it's just a piece of us. And when you pull your whole self together, your actions are not negative. Your actions, your thoughts, your whole self is not a negative thing. But throughout your whole self has to come this understanding of the negative self. Don't hold it against others, but help them understand it, because they need to be responsible for their own negative self, because their negative self is going to have an impact, a chaotic impact on the field around them. And since we do have mirror neurons, your activities are firing up neurons in my brain. So please, would you make them a little more coherent and a little less chaotic? How do you do that? Plug your brain and your heart into one another. It's truly as simple and as difficult as that. It's as simple as that, but then the trick is you gotta stay consistent. The more consistently that you can keep your brain and your heart plugged in, the better, the longer of a chance your brain has to crank out some better mathematics, some better logic, some better ideas, If you pop in and out, your thinking mind doesn't have long enough to spin a scenario that includes a long-term peace or long-term happiness or long-term freedom or long-term abundance and wealth or any of the things that you claim that you want. You need to stay in a positive mindset long enough to get a bead on some good ideas, some good physical ideas from your physical reality-based brain, But your reality-based brain also possesses a vibrational helper. But this vibrational helper is more than just your helper. This vibrational helper is actually you. It's the greater part of you. You are, these two great aspects of yourself. This one great aspect of yourself is this physical being that you have come into. That's actually it, not a small thing. The very act of your birth was a hero's journey. Was the beginning of a hero's journey. It was a hero. And the act of your mother to bring you into life. Oh my gosh, what my daughter went through, and I have barely a concept of it. If I could get, a Vulcan mind melt on a memory of what that must have been like for her to give birth to her son in her home. She only ever dilated to 9 and then had to birth this baby anyway. And they did it. They did it. And he was a bit banged up, a bit bruised, and needs chiropractic now because of it. Because he kind of came out, he was squeezed pretty tight. And they were faced with, do we call an ambulance and we get somebody to come? And they were close to thinking about that. But anyway, so the very act of you're being born and your mother having birthed you is a hero's act right there of great order. What am I getting into now? I'm thinking about Joseph Campbell and his view of life as a hero's journey. And when you tell the story that way, you evoke something in human beings that rests within their soul, that actually is a part of them, that they rise to. And that is the magical beauty and gift of mythology, and that's why he studied it. And he was one of my first gurus, and what I loved about him was the unifying force of his perception, the way that he saw all religion, everything under the same umbrella as mythology, and he didn't see it as trivial, and he saw it as reflecting a great truth about all of us and our unity, our we're all in this together factor, that kind of thing. So what is the answer? What is the answer? The answer is we are all in this together. The answer is that within your being you contain a sort of a mirror thing. You are a mirror. And when you set this mirror within you just right, in your stillness and in your fullness and in your allowing and in your lack of resistance, you can tweak this mirror so that it reflects back to you the wholeness of the whole universe, which also you are, by the way. You are. And we are the whole universe. We are also the morphogenetic field of humanity. These are all data streams. These are all access data points. We are also the whole biofield. That's actually going the other way. So we are the whole thing. We are the biofield. We are humanity. We are our nation. We are our whatever. And you might have yourself clipped out in a few other ways too. I am my religion. I am my bowling team. I am my family. I am my neighborhood. I'm my village. I actually live in a village. All of these different ways that you identify. Who am I? Who am I? Remember, that's the question. That's the thesis of the show. Who am I? And we ask this question with sincerity, with allowance, with lack of resistance, with humility. Who am I? With an open mind, and our intention is to plug our hearts and our minds together, so whatever our conclusion that it comes to feels right to our soul. Our soul is our overview, our vibrational self, who isn't superstitious nonsense, but actual mathematical vibrational reality. You actually are your vibrational self, your higher, greater overview self. But you also are this point of attraction here on the grid in this moment, focused and coalesced within a physical mind. You are both of these. You are, you are, you are. And the realization of the truth of this with a capital T, the isness of it with a capital I. Do you see where my theme is here? Who are we? Who are we? And how does a better understanding of who we actually are, and I'm talking about who we are all the way down to our molecular structure, our actual physical molecular. I didn't finish the 7, did I? I was at. I talked about going psychotic without sleep, digressed over to vivisection for a second, and then lost my train of thought. But I found it. I'm going to go back to the 7. The 7 things you physically need to keep yourself alive. 1, 2, 3. We were on sleep. The next one is food, then shelter, and then and the shelter doesn't have to be a house. It just has to be any kind of sheltering environment for your physical body. Something that is conducive to allowing you to sleep and eat and get food and not die of hypothermia or sun exposure or whatever. Then I don't know whether this list applies to all of life, and it might, not just human beings. So birds need this too. So shelter, and then relationship, and it doesn't have to be with your own species. It could be with another species. Now I just said, and Bashar would say, it doesn't have to be with another human being. It could be your dog or a bird or nature or the cosmos. It doesn't even have to be it could be with a volleyball, if you know what I mean. But you need relationship. And then the last one is expression. And this is probably why the caged bird sings, which I have not actually read Maya Angelou's work on that, but I do know the title, which is I Know Now Why the Caged Bird Sings. So anyway, who am I? Who am I? And how is any of this monkey rot going to get us to off of fossil fuels and onto a life and a world of higher abundance? Because we need to be creating abundance, not scarcity. The fact that we are engaged in the 6th mass extinction. It was 11 something else. The 6th mass extinction is outrageous because we are abundance creating machines. And so the only answer must be that we don't know who we are and we aren't being our authentic selves. And I think the biggest reason that we are going awry at this moment is that A, we don't know ourselves, and B, we are using fossil fuels past where it would have been comfortable for us to have done. When we started poisoning the planet, we should have started looking for another answer. We should have known with faith in our hearts that the Almighty has provided us another answer. It's why we didn't have to get to where we are now on whale oil. Because when you ask, it is given. And it is given for all of us because our inner being is actually vibrationally engaged in all of us getting what we want collectively. And you know what? The problem with this idea in the past has been when we try to act collectively, the problem in the past has been lockstep and groupthink, which is not what you want. People sublimating their individuality for the group because they realize we are all in this together, and so the group must be more important than me as an individual. And so the state asking for the individual to sacrifice themselves for the state, that's where the problem is. Right there is exactly where the problem is, because that's not the answer. The answer is each and every one of us has to learn how to click into alignment with our two selves, so that you are getting your direction not from somebody else outside of you telling you what you should do, but from your position on the grid, pinging in purity to you what impulse you should be doing. But you have to find it in clarity, and it's in this non-resistant place where you aren't pushing back against things, where you are feeling pure positive energy, where you are in alignment with your inner being. And only in that place of non-resistance are you in pure alignment with your inner being. So now, from this place of non-resistance, now what are your choices? What can you do that is not pushing against anybody else, but is joyfully bounding in trust and faith directly towards what you want? Well, that's a tricky order. All of the things that I just said, putting that together in that way, that's tricky. That's a tall order. What you have to learn how to do is get unconditional. How do you get unconditional? How do you blank out the conditions in order to formulate an understanding of its unconditionality? And then when you understand it unconditionally, now you turn back and look at the conditions and you go, I understand this. Now I can see it. But still you have to stay primarily vibrational. Vibration is primary. It means that the vibration comes first. Doesn't mean that the other stuff isn't real. It is real. It's just second. It's the thing that happens second. Do you understand why that makes a difference? Why you have to put how it feels first in your primary, and you have to care about how you feel, and you have to value yourself enough to hold on to that. It's really meaningful. That the biggest thing that cripples, that hobbles, cripples and hobbles is good enough. I don't need to find a third one, I guess. I was going to get all lost trying to thesaurus that third way. But the biggest thing that cripples and hobbles humanity is our sense of unworthiness. You are here. That makes you worthy. And I don't care if you're homeless, and I don't care if you're an autocrat. I don't care if you're an asshole. Well, I do care about all of those things. What I want you to do if you are all of those things is I want you to watch my show, and I want you to listen to my show, and I want you to understand more fully who you really are so that you'll quit being all of those things. I don't like autocrats, and I don't like assholes, and I don't like whatever the other one I said. Who am I? Who am I? It's a good dang question. We are all in this together. So I've been working on this one. It has to do with the form and the formless. This is the fundamental place where I break it down. The form and the formless. I like that one because the form, well, that's your physical body, the conventional world that you look around of atoms and molecules and, spin, the actual world of form. That's the traditional world of reality, right? Well, there's another aspect to it, and that is the formless forces underneath the form that are moving the form, right? The form and the formless. The formless could be analogized to the quantum grid. The quantum field is the formless, the formless. The formless is the quantum field itself, and the form is what the quantum field dances its way into, spins its way into, actually. And that form is always changing. That was the fifth law of the 1, 3, 5, 7, 11 download. I never told you what the 11 is, and I don't know what the 11 points are, but those are the 11 points of, it's like bliss, enthusiasm, excitement, joy, whatever. I don't know what word you want to use for that. The 11 points of that, because your excitement is supposed to be what you are following, and you're supposed to be doing it in the world of action. And I think what's happening with me is I have figured out a way to pull my inner being's quiet narrative going on, the inner chatter in behind my eyeballs in my own brain, how to bring it into physical reality. That's what this exercise of oral meditation every day, talking about who am I, who am I, who am I. Now, I'm always promising to talk about unified physics. I have said the Q word a couple times today. I haven't really talked a lot about the structure, the new understandings of the wholeness of the structure of the field that we inhabit. The spinning space-time, it's all spinning. We are all spinning together. And all of the individual things are individually spinning at slightly different rates. I got my own spin going on, and you've got your own spin going on, and every object around you has its own spin going on around you. And actually, every cell of your body has its own spin going on around you, and actually, every atom of your body has its own spin going on. Every proton has its own spin. And then when you get down to the Planck, you're not at spin, you're at spin potential. If you're past spin potential, you're not at the Planck, you're at the atom or something else. You are either at the Planck level, where you are at the level of vacuum fluctuations and the possibility of spin coherence, this spin cohering, spinning with that one, joining that spin, or all the things that are going on at the spin level. But then as a whole thing, we're all spinning together, like the coffee spinning, and then we are the cream spinning in the spinning cup of coffee. Nassim does that analogy. We are all spinning. We are all spinning both individually and collectively. And we have a collective spin that is our source spin that we all have in common, where we are all spinning together. And it is both literal, and then you get to imagine in analogy and metaphor and how that plays out in my life and all of that. You get to imagine that, but there's a literal mathematic arrangement to this. Who am I? You are the Planck field. And your desires are what is coalescing into the materiality of the world around you, and your awareness of who you are and how it works is expanding the whole thing. And you are expanding, you are feeding your information back up to the whole. The information of the whole is feeding relevant stuff back to you. You are a team. You are a team with the universe. Act like it. Don't act like a greedy bastard who is not connected to everybody else. Don't, have your greedy banquet and then shit on the world unconsciously without realizing that you're robbing the bank. so that you could be rich, took all the money from everybody in the whole town, or that kind of analogy. We are all in this together. And the actual place where you're going to have your wildest success lies in organization. Now, of course, this also lies in the heart of organized crime. But that's because organized crime is not taking the field out far enough. It takes it out to the larger organization of the criminal enterprise, but it doesn't recognize that criminal enterprise exists in a field larger than that we also share. And so as the criminals are sucking all the life out of the economy, and all the families over here so that doesn't work either. You have to take it all the way. You have to take it all the way out to the we are all in this together, and that there is no us and them. And the act of resistance against who you believe is the other is actually the source of most, if not all, of your difficulties. And if you would instead focus on, from the banquet of what you see around you, what is the possibilities? What could you create? What could you organize? What could you build and beautify? What could you garden? What gardens could you create? What magnificent parks, both theme and arboreal? What kinds of things can we do that is mutually beneficial to one another? What kinds of systems could we create where when we recognize that we are a superorganism and then put all of our efforts towards how to be better at that? Let's build that better world. IBM, I'm ready. I'm waiting. Every time I pull up to a light, there's nobody else around, and I'm sitting at a red light that is on a timer instead of one that knows that I am there and knows where all the rest of the traffic is flowing and doesn't just go boom. And it's because there's no incentive that direction. The incentive for the purity, the clarity of what we want is not really there. The incentive is to keep us sitting there at the light, burning gasoline because there's somebody in charge who owns who owns the refineries or owns the oil fields or owns something that is benefiting by us sitting there using the fuel. Wouldn't it be great if we really, 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 really wanted to not use the fuel? Then we would be incentivized to make those intersections smarter. We could do it. We could do it easily. We could save probably millions, if not billions of dollars over the years of people just sitting there burning gas, not to mention the road rage and the flow of our lives would get more. Oh, there's so many ways we could make our lives better if we would just focus on making our lives better instead of having to be all focused on reality, on what we've got instead of what we want. You do have to barely kind of look at what we've got, sort of like as you're flying down the road in your Ferrari. I wanted to say something more interesting than that. Like in your Lamborghini at 150 miles an hour, you do have to kind of look at the road. But you aren't examining the road and scrutinizing the road and agonizing about the road and discussing all those specific pebbles on the road. You're just kind of seeing that and flying past. Do you know that humanity could do that? We could move towards the world that we want a lot faster than we're doing. One of the ways that we could do that is we could make the individuals within a collective group more flexible in their ability to move from, say for instance, although there's a lot of people working in the fossil fuel industry who could be working in industries converting us to over unity instead. But actually, that's probably not the right way to say that. We could immediately or very quickly, once we realize the truth about over unity and start getting some devices going, it isn't going to be very long before the disadvantages of the fossil fuel industry will become obvious. And we're going to drop it like a hot potato. Unfortunately, there are millions of families whose lives depend on fossil fuel, whose livelihoods, whose connection to the supply chain of humanity is dependent on fossil fuels. And because we don't have a good safety net, a good social safety net, instead of those families eagerly embracing over unity and helping us all get there, which is going to be a better place for all of us, they will fight it tooth and nail because we aren't going to take care of them. And if they don't hold on to the fossil fuel industry, their children are going to starve. Do you see how we need to be more of a collective being so that we can be more of a flexible being? We have to have more faith in ourselves and faith in each other about each one of us having an inner being. Let's understand what our actual collective and individual nature is so that we can help inspire each other to better behavior. We're never going to flog and punish one another into better behavior. That's like the old joke, and the beatings will continue until morale improves. And the sad truth is that beatings are never going to improve morale. And that law and order candidate ultimately is not going to bring us the peace that we are looking for, the freedom and the peace that we are looking for. That party claims to be all about law and order on the one hand and protecting individual freedom on the other hand. And I'm not quite sure exactly how the momentum can build both of those directions. It's not going to be. It's going to be law and order to keep a particular kind of peace. A peace that doesn't object, that never complains, that allows the structure of the state. So it's actually a mutual thing, that's because the state is sort of the problem. But we need the state. But we need the state to be only a particular kind of spirit. There's certain spirits that we don't want the state to be in charge of. And yet there are some people that kind of ultimately believe that those are the only things that the state needs to be in charge of, as in the police and the military. It's actually a very weird conundrum that we find ourselves in. Who are we? Who are we? Because, every one of my father's brothers, and there were 11 boys in that family. 11 boys and 2 girls. And all 11 of those boys served in one of the military services or other. Every single one of them, and almost every one of them served that in a war. So I do not discount the value of military service. I do not. And I'm going to take Joseph Campbell's tack on it. The recognition of maybe that war should not have been fought does not discount the individual valor or heroism of the sacrifice of the individuals who fought the war. That would be like maybe Vietnam. And when we decided that we shouldn't have fought that war, we started taking it out on the poor boys who fought the war, who were coming back from having sacrificed themselves for their country. They come back and they get, disrespected on this side of the pond. That's not right, even if that war should not have been fought. So who do you push back against then? Push back against the government. Push back against the boys who fought the war. Push back against the... But the government is us, and the boys are our children. And the fact of the matter is that there is no us and them. Oh, by the way, I need to end this show because I'm coming up on an hour and 15 minutes, and I don't want to go past an hour and a half, and I can easily do that. Announcements for the show. I would like to, in the not too distant future, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. I'm going to do a couple of things upcoming on the show. One is I want to do a marathon. I'm going to take a day out, pluck a day out of the world, and I'm going to go at it for as many hours as I can manage. I'm just going to blow right through breakfast. I might take a couple of breaks. I'm going to have my husband out of the house. I want to just do it. See how many hours I can go in a single day. Might be 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know. Let's see how far I can go. How many hours can I talk to myself? Or actually, I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to you. That's one thing I want to do coming up. And another thing is I have a training session coming up this Thursday. I'm going to be... I have already started a podcast, but I don't know where it is. I don't know how to find it. I don't know how to tell you how to find it. I don't know. I have figured out how to post episodes to it. And the first episode was Halloween. And I did the November 1st and November 2nd, and today is the 3rd. And this one will be posted to that podcast. I'm going to learn how to post this podcast to other people's podcast feeds. Think so look for this podcast coming soon to wherever you get your podcasts. I think I'm going to hire somebody to help me with visibility a little bit so that I can actually have a regular following. I'd like a regular following of, maybe a few dozen people. I think that would be fun. I'm going to start going live. That's part of my training session is I'm going to be able to start live streaming so that I will do the show as a live stream and then I will post it to my YouTube channel and I will upload it to my podcasts and you'll be able to see it on all these different platforms. That will be coming soon. I'm going to have a training session this Thursday, so maybe as early as next week. Maybe this time next week, all of that will be happening. So that's exciting for the show. Exciting news for the show. So I think I'm going to leave it right there. I will be back tomorrow. We just did daylight savings time. So right now it is 6:42 in the morning. When yesterday the same thing would have been called 7:42. It's so luxurious to have that extra hour. I love that. Anyway, I gotta wind this down. I gotta do my close. So just hold on 1 second while I gather my thoughts. So, as always, it is my wish. I wish you well. I bid you peace. No, I don't know how to end the show, except to say that I know that we are all in this together. So be easier on yourself. Be easier on yourself and on each other, because your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. There is no us and them and all of that. Yada, yada, yada. How do we make this work together for all of us? All of us. Both all humans and non-humans here on planet Earth. How do we recreate our planet of abundance, our Gaia of the future? How do we become the gardeners that I believe we are meant to be here on planet Earth? Well, we're going to talk more about that tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, and I hope you'll be with me. And until then, please, may that source be with you. Actually, your source is always with you. May you be with that source. The problem is that doesn't rhyme. So may the source be with you. Well, that doesn't rhyme either. It just rhymes with that other. Well, never mind. Goodbye.